Hi, folks, and welcome back to a new episode of the Legends of Sport podcast. I'm your ever present host, Andy Bernstein. Today's guest is someone who is a household name in the world of golf, Michelle Wie West. If you looked up child prodigy in the dictionary, you'd probably only find a handful of people throughout history who fit that description. Tiger Woods, Stevie Wonder, Michael Phelps, Mozart, and today's guest. Michelle took up golf at the tender age of 4. By 10, she was winning tournaments and destroying the competition, male or female, in her native home of Hawaii. Michelle turned pro just before her 16th birthday and competed as a professional while attending and graduating from Stanford University. In 2020, Michelle and her husband Johnny welcomed a baby girl into the world, and little McKenna can be seen on Michelle's Instagram page tagging along in the stroller to the driving range and onto the course as Michelle prepares for active competition. We had a great conversation about Michelle's work-life balance, what it was like competing against men growing up, her advocacy for mental health and pay equity in sports, and even hitting the links with her father-in-law, Jerry West. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did chatting with Michelle. And as always, I'll see you on the backside. So welcome, Michelle Wie West, to the Legends of Sport podcast. So great to see you.
Yeah, so great to see you as well. It's been a long time.
Yeah, it has been. It's just so great to connect. It's so great to see people, even still on Zoom, but at least we get to see each other. And I know you had to carve out some time for this interview, which, is amazingly appreciated. So thank you so much. And I know you're busy. So let's get into it. So, Michelle, I got to understand something because you're the first person I think that I've met that had a baby during the pandemic. And I remember when McKenna was born, right, in June 2020, a couple of days after my daughter's birthday, actually. She's June 16th. But she's 13, so that doesn't count. But what was that like? Before we get into your career and all that stuff, I just want to know because it had to be so difficult. You like by yourself in the hospital and all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I didn't have another experience to compare it to. So it was the only
Mm.
thing I knew. I mean, it was terrifying because, I mean, still to this day, you get different reports from, different people, what's happening with the virus. And especially when it was really beginning, different people were saying different things. Some people were saying it wasn't targeting pregnant women. Some people were saying that we were the target.
Mm.
So it was scary because there's a lot of unknown.
Yeah.
Fortunately, Johnny was able to be with me in the hospital room. But we wanted to have our parents there, we have a lot of people, but it was definitely isolating.
Yeah, I
To
bet.
say the very least, didn't get to have any baby shower, didn't get to see any of my friends when I was pregnant or afterwards either.
Mm.
So it was very lonely, but we had a great, COVID bubble, I guess, a quarantine bubble. So we were
Yeah.
very fortunate.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was scary.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I have to tell you, your father-in-law is one of my dearest and oldest friends, and of course, his wife Karen. We've been friends for 40 plus years, right? Now I can never talk to Jerry about anything other than McKenna. It's like I go over to talk to him about basketball. I don't want to talk about basketball.
Yeah.
Do you see these pictures we just shot last weekend? It's hilarious. I love that guy.
Yeah, no, he's definitely obsessed, and she is such a flirt. She loves her papa and her nana. So
Yeah.
it's been a lot of fun to see them, interact. And, like I said, we had a great little bubble. So from day one, we
Mm.
were, with our parents a lot. So we're very fortunate in that sense.
Yeah, yeah. So Michelle, obviously, I'm not going to go into your whole career. Everybody knows it, right? So, child prodigy, took up golf at 4, 10, you were like, world renowned and all that. Your mom, in the research we did, and I didn't really know that much about you, quite honestly, until Veronica and I started talking, but your mom, was a professional, like championship golfer, right? So now I see you taking McKenna, like out to the driving range, and she's in the stroller. And I talked to Johnny yesterday, and he said that McKenna loves hitting things with the golf club or whatever. Um, what did you get from that experience of growing up with your mom being, a top flight golfer, and of course now you with your daughter.
Yeah, so my mom was Miss Korea back in the day, and she grew up doing pageants, doing dance, playing golf. My uncle, actually, her younger brother, was a champion bowler, won a medal in the Asian Olympics
Mm,
when he was like 13. So he was kind of a child prodigy in his own sense.
mhm,
So I think when my mom, like, we were all going through the stuff that I was going through, nothing kind of like a shocked her. I guess I was just like really comfortable performing in front of people because A, like, I guess it was in my genetics, but B, like, she would always like hold little like kid pageants for me in the house. And I was just like, I don't know, I always like enjoyed kind of being performing in front of people. I was never shy.
Interesting.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I guess I just kind of grew up with the sense of that was normal.
Mhm.
And I just loved it.
Are you bringing that into your experience now with your daughter? Like the same kind of
She
thing?
loves, I mean, it's funny because she'll obviously, being a COVID baby, she'll be really shy in front of certain people. But for the most part, with our family, she is just
Yeah.
such a show off and loves performing.
Yeah.
We just turned on Moana yesterday and she was like singing and dancing along.
Good.
So it's just so
Yeah.
fun.
That age is amazing. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, I have 4 kids and 3 of them are girls. So yeah, tremendous age, and they just getting mobile and they kind of can figure things out already for themselves, right?
Mhm.
Um, did you play any other sports growing up or was it just strictly golf?
No, I played pretty much everything.
Mhm.
I was on the swim team. I did baseball. I did gymnastics. I, strangely enough, did ballet, which, let me tell you, did not last very long. Gymnastics and ballet were the shortest stints.
Yeah.
I grew out of those pretty quickly.
Right.
I did tennis pretty seriously. I did a lot. I did soccer. I just love being outside. So
Yeah.
from a very young age, I love sports and I wanted to be a professional athlete.
Hmm.
And then I just slowly started to realize I started sucking at these other sports. And I kind of narrowed it down to tennis and golf. And I was like, oh, I really want to play tennis, but then
Yeah.
realized I have really heavy, slow feet. So that doesn't really work.
Right.
So I
Right.
just kind of focus on golf since
Yeah.
then.
Did you, I mean, growing up in Hawaii, did you surf at all? Was that in there?
No, I
No.
actually watched Blue Crush when I was younger, and I was
Yeah.
terrified
Yeah.
of the
I hear
ocean
you.
for a very long time.
Yeah. I don't blame you. So I have a question. You went to Stanford, right? And because you had already turned pro right before you were 16, obviously you couldn't, with NCAA rules, you couldn't compete on the Stanford team. I mean, it had to be sort of in a way devastating because you wanted to compete for your school, I'm sure, right? But then you had this like crazy schedule, this unique schedule of like basically going half the year to school and half the year on tour. How did that all work for you? Because I'd never
I
heard of that.
I know. Looking back, I honestly don't know how I graduated, because I took the maximum number of units every quarter. I took 20 units, which is like four classes.
Mm-hmm.
And I sometimes, so a quarter is 10 weeks. Sometimes out of that quarter, I would miss 4 weeks of school
Mm-hmm.
and I would take my exams on the road. I honestly don't know how I did it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was so much fun. It was like the best 4.5 years of my life. It was
Yeah.
just so much fun being able to kind of have that dual life was really great for me mentally
Mm-hmm.
because I burst on the scene so quickly and I was so young.
Mm-hmm.
When
Yeah.
I went to high school, when I went to college, I was just normal. No one knew who I was. No one cared who I was. Thankfully, at Stanford, I really hid behind Andrew Luck. He was the star on campus, and
Right.
no one knew who I was, and no one cared. And still to this day, my closest friends from college, from high school, from middle school, they don't know anything about golf. So we don't ever talk about golf ever,
Yeah.
which is great.
Yeah, I learned that Neka Gumake was a classmate of yours. She's
Yeah.
a great friend of mine, and also Shanae, of course.
Yeah. And her sister. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so much great sports, especially women's sports at Stanford. I remember when I was shooting college sports and early in my career, Stanford was, I went up there a few times to shoot. It's a great campus, tremendous history. And well, good for you. I mean, I applaud the fact that you were able to balance both things. That's just amazing to me. Um, Talk to me a little bit about as you can tell, I don't know a lot about golf. All right. So I did play a little golf when I was in college. My dad played a little bit of golf. We had Amy Alcott on the podcast early, and she kind of educated me about golf. But what was it like for you playing against men? Because Johnny told me, he had a great quote, but he said that golf is pretty much the only sport where men and women are somewhat pretty much equal. Like you could both go out, and you were like kicking butt at the men's on the men's side for like basically your whole life. What was that like for you?
It was just like normal for me because also because I was so young, I didn't really like understand the concept of that women couldn't play with men. And I
Mm.
really truly couldn't understand that concept to my core because I was the only girl on the boys' baseball team. I was such a tomboy. All my friends were boys. I would, play basketball in recess and, all that.
Yeah.
So, and then when I was younger, what people don't really know is growing up on the island, your opportunities are so limited. And
Hmm.
I won everything on the island that I could. I won the most prestigious women's golf tournament in Hawaii when I was 12 by 13 strokes. So
Yeah.
the only next natural progression for me in my mind was to go play men's events. So I started playing, local men's events. And,
Yeah.
when I heard of this tournament called the Sony Open, it was 10 minutes from my house. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
sure, why not? It was easier than flying to the mainland to play junior tournaments for sure.
Yeah, yeah, it's funny because Ann Myers Drysdale told me a story similar to that, and Nancy Lieberman, how they just didn't have competition. The girls growing up, you know, Nancy used to take the subway to Rucker Park and play against the boys up there, and then
Mhm.
she was the only girl, only
Yeah.
white girl, really, and the boys like were they fell in love with her so much in her game that they would actually accompany her back home to Queens on the subway late at night, and she'd have to lie to her mother. Great. I don't know if you know Nancy, but she is fabulous. Um, talking about playing with men. Okay, I have to ask you about playing with or against or on the same course as Jerry, because I know we all know how competitive Jerry is, right? And Johnny talked about how he loves to just watch Jerry pick your brain about golf, right? Which I would love to be a fly on the wall for that. Were you, I don't know, intimidated playing with your father-in-law, or is it just fun, or because Jerry, I don't think does anything that's just for fun, honestly.
No, I mean, it's awesome to see him hit balls, chip, putt. He
Yeah.
just has so much feel in his hands that it's just like really incredible to watch that.
Hmm.
And that obviously has transcended to Johnny. I mean, he has the most amazing hands on the golf course. He can not hit balls for 3 months, and obviously that might, go up and down, but his short game and his putting is
Hmm.
amazing. So it's really fun, to play with other athletes and,
Hmm. Hmm.
always play with family on the golf course is amazing. That's what's so great about the sport, right?
Yeah.
Is that I can never play basketball with Jerry or Johnny or Ryan or any of them or, do any of that. But
Yeah. Yeah.
golf is such an activity that the whole family can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's so much fun.
Mm. You had a quote in the LA Times where you said that I always thought I'd be the person that I'm going to quit when I have kids, right? And that changed. You did like a 180 on that. What was the I mean, I know the whole Giuliani story and all that stuff, and that was a motivator, of course. But um, and we don't want to get into that anyway, political stuff. But um, having McKenna, how did that sort of change your outlook?
Yeah, it was funny because I had a really in-depth conversation with Carrie Walsh Jennings when I did a shoot with her, and she obviously is this amazing, legendary athlete, has 3 kids, and still is competing far afterwards. And we were just talking about it, and I told her like my thought, like, oh, I'm just gonna retire when I have kids.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, why?
Yeah.
I was like, what do you mean? Why? Like, I was like, that's just kind of what I thought. And I didn't really have like a reason behind it. Maybe it was just like social pressure. Maybe it was just like a belief that I just always had.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not like my mom retired when she had me. So I don't know why I always thought that.
Yeah.
But she
Yeah.
was like, you don't have to, like, I have 3 kids, and I am still doing what I'm doing is obviously really hard. And I was like, okay. okay, I won't like completely close off that door.
Mhm.
And it was really cool talking, obviously, to a legend about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I know now you're on the board of directors at the LPGA, right? So that takes up time. Obviously, you have your daughter, you have your family life. Um, are you picking and choosing the tournaments you're going to be playing in? Is that how it works in golf? Or you don't have to do
Yeah.
like a minimum number of tournaments or anything?
Yeah, I definitely am looking at that. Just with, I mean, priorities definitely shift.
Hmm.
Golf was my priority in my life for so long. And, the minute that McKenna entered the world, it just completely shifted.
Hmm.
So definitely looking at the schedule and seeing what works best for me and my family. And I haven't really worked out all the details yet. It's
Yeah.
definitely working as I go and kind of
Yeah.
adapting.
Yeah.
But yeah, just looking at the schedule and seeing what works.
Yeah. I'm sure there's other moms on the tour, right? I mean,
Oh yeah, and
yeah.
they've been a great resource for me.
Yeah, because I know in the WNBA, I've had some great conversations with Candace Parker and others who, it actually added to the experience. Like Candace talked about having her daughter and bringing her on the road at a young age and having her experience that and having them experience it together. It's an
Mhm.
adventure and all that stuff, and not short shrifting like her craft and her profession, but being able to enhance it. I think it's a beautiful thing. Men don't get that opportunity really, unless you're a single dad. I mean, I was a single dad for a long time, but I couldn't take my kids on the road. It just wasn't going to work. So,
Mhm.
I think, I'm thinking back to the WNBA bubble and how some of these women were so thankful that they could have their kids there, and the guys were in the bubble, 100 days and never saw their families. So,
Yeah.
it's interesting. Um, Michelle, I want to talk about the sort of activism and the social justice issues, all the things that you're involved in, right? And I don't want to cover everything, but I know mental health is at the top of you know of your priority in terms of raising awareness about it. We've had many people on the podcast. Kevin Love kind of opened the door. Your father-in-law, I'm sure you've read his book, but my opinion, he led the way with professional athletes, 11, 12 years ago when his book came out, how revealing he was. And you commented last year on Naomi Osaka's stance on mental health and doing interviews. And we saw with Simone Biles during the Olympics and all that. Um, your struggles with mental health, do you want to speak about how now mental health issues are out in the forefront and how athletes are leading the way?
Yeah, I think it's really cool. I think that growing up in the sport world, you always want to be tough and want to have an edge on other people and never want to seem weak. So it's hard. It's really hard to be truthful about how you're really feeling because you never want to seem quote unquote weak.
Hmm.
So you struggle internally, you struggle quietly.
Hmm.
But it's just so amazing how athletes nowadays are brave enough to be truthful about how they're feeling. And that
Hmm.
in itself, I think helps you personally.
Hmm.
Because when you're not being your true self, when you're hiding things or you're, putting on a false front, it definitely becomes very tough.
Hmm.
But it's also just realizing that athletes are humans as well. We're all humans and we all
Yeah.
have feelings, and that's okay.
Yeah. How is the LPGA for support of their athletes? We've heard horror stories, of course, USA soccer, um, tennis, and some say gymnastics. How is the LPGA? Are they in tune with it? Are they offer resources? Is it something that's like, stuffed under the rug, or is it really out there?
Yeah, I think golfers and golf leagues are very aware of the fact that golf is a very hard sport on your brain. I think even amateur golfers
Hmm.
are known to break clubs here and then, and they're just playing for fun. So if you only imagine playing golf for a living, it can get
Hmm.
very tough. But our tour is fortunately they're very in tune with helping us out.
Hmm.
They have a lot of cool partnerships with like the Calm app and therapists that we can text and talk to. And it's also just, if we need a day off or something, the rule
Hmm.
officials and the tour, they all know.
Hmm.
A lot of the people that work for our tour are past players.
Hmm.
So they've walked in our shoes and they've all been there. So it's a very safe space to talk to people. When when you talk to people about things that you're struggling, everyone just knows.
Mhm.
Everyone's been there.
Yeah. Do you find that you're a resource? You're sort of a mentor to the younger golfers that you can sort of, let them know that, hey, you need somebody to talk to. I'm here for you. Is that
Yeah,
part
I
of
think
your,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I try to. I definitely try to open myself up to the younger kids.
Mhm.
I think they definitely are a little bit intimidated, and they don't believe me when I say that. But I truly, genuinely, would love to, talk to the kids if they ever, are experiencing things because, like I said, we've
Yeah.
all been there.
Hmm.
So I think
Yeah.
it's easier when you talk to a peer.
Yeah, for sure. I know that pay disparity and equity in pay is super important to you. I mean, your hoodies for golf campaign. I think that was what, earlier this year or last year. And I
Yeah,
remember the Warriors guys wearing it and stuff. I think you sold out in like 10 minutes and raised what, $350,000 plus, right?
yeah.
So that's across the board. Like you're trying to do like an inner sport or a multi-sport sort of outreach to like sort of a combined effort, which is unique, and I think it's amazing.
Yeah, and I think that's what the WNBA did so well. So
Mhm.
we kind of modeled our sweatshirt after theirs.
Mhm.
Just people love supporting women's sport, but they just never really had the opportunity or like a really easy way to
Mhm.
show their support. And the sweatshirt's such an easy way of wearing it. Whether or not you watch the WNBA or the LPGA religiously, just the fact that you wear a sweater with our logo on it,
Yeah.
it is truly amazing because it just shows that you're with us, you
Mhm.
support us, and then women's sports, we just have to be creative in the way we gain new audience. We're not going to gain new audience the traditional way that the men do. Um, so
Mhm.
creative campaigns like these, outreach into other sports. I mean, the fact that Steph and the guys and the Warriors wore it is just so amazing. And it's
Yeah.
so amazing to see, other sports like baseball and football players wearing it. And that's kind of what we wanted to do with the hoodie. It's just a really easy way for girl dads, and
Mhm.
other, men and women and kids to really wear it and show support.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
really funny because the we always thought the small and the mediums would sell out the fastest, but it was actually the large and the extra larges, and
Yeah. That's
we couldn't keep them in stock. It was amazing.
Oh, that's so great. I'm just remembering, Kobe wearing the orange WNBA sweatshirt, which made it like officially cool for guys to endorse the WNBA like openly and wear it. And then all of a sudden you're seeing guys come into NBA games wearing it and stuff. And we all know, obviously, it's legendary what Kobe was trying to do for the WNBA and for women's basketball through his work with Gigi and so many WNBA stars. Did you ever have a conversation with Kobe about any of this or any Kobe story you can share with us?
No, I briefly met him when I was younger, when I first joined Nike, and I just
Yeah.
remember being in just such awe. I honestly like don't remember. I think I blacked out completely. So I was just like, oh my God, is this gonna be right? I was like, I don't know what to say. I was like,
Yeah.
I was like, don't make a fool out of yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just I just was so amazing obviously he's touched so many hearts during his career, but
Mhm.
I felt
Mhm.
like it was afterwards with his daughter that it really touched my heart. And I think just all the work that he did, it was just so amazing.
Yeah, I mean, there was so much left to do, and that's part of the tragedy, obviously, of losing him. That he just had so much in front of him, and of course, Gigi did too. Um, I read that you sort of sidled up a little bit to Billie Jean King, and you're picking her brain about her experience with tennis. Very well documented and known. Of course, we're coming up to the 50-year anniversary of Title IX in June. My wife happens to be the Title IX director at Cal State LA, where Billie Jean King went. So,
Wow.
and I got 3 daughters, so I'm very much, I get it. What was that like? That conversation like with Billie Jean King?
I mean, I couldn't believe it that I was like, I'm actually calling Billie Jean King. I was like, someone actually trusted me with her phone number. I was like,
Right.
okay. I was like, I was expecting like to be like a total like spam or not her, but she was super cool and just really listening to all the stories that she had and her
Yeah.
experiences on with the pay disparity and um you know female athletes we like to complain right now, but really back in the
Yeah.
day, I mean, they are true warriors.
Mhm.
And, I hope that we can do half of what they did, to, forward our sports and, close the gap. But I learned a lot, which is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, the stand that they took by breaking away from the men's game and playing for $1, you
Yeah.
know, it's unbelievable. I mean, seriously, and she single-handedly with that group, led the way, and for all, I think, all women's sports, but not just for women's sport. It like opened the eyes of everybody. Like this is just isn't right. The women, maybe the WNBA doesn't get the same sponsorship, but that shouldn't be such a disparity. It shouldn't be that now women have to go play, 12 months a year. They have to make more money in Europe or wherever they go. Brittany Griner is still in Russia because she can't get out after having to go to Russia to make more money. I mean, none of it really seems to make any sense, especially to a
Mhm.
girl dad.
Yeah.
Because I want my daughters who work as hard, in school and in college and sports, whatever it is. I have one daughter who's about to go to medical school. I don't want her to make, 75 cents on the dollar, what the guy next to her is making. It ticks me off, right?
Yeah.
So I applaud you for being at the forefront of that. And it's important that somebody with your name, your celebrity, your history is leading the way. So keep it going and keep us posted on all that
Yeah, for
because
sure.
we're huge advocates of it. So Michelle, what's on tap? You got any tournaments coming up that we can look forward to and root you on? What's happening?
Yeah, still looking at the schedule. The US Open will definitely be on my schedule. But yeah, just still looking right now, and like I said, adapting as I go.
Yeah,
And yeah, life is unpredictable right now.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
and
taking it day by day.
enjoying being a mom, right? It's the
Yeah.
most important thing. I hope I get to see you during the playoffs. We usually run into each other. We used to be at Oracle, but then, at the new arena in Chase. And Johnny and such a wonderful, I don't have to tell you, but he's just such a wonderful guy. I actually was talking to Ryan the other day. Ryan was asking me for pictures from back in the 80s, like
Oh,
which I actually found, believe it or not. And you have a wonderful family. I wish you all the best, Michelle, really. And everything you're doing is just, it's so honorable and wonderful. So
oh,
please
thank
keep
you.
it up. And we're going to keep pumping everything that you do and keep following you. Okay.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah. So great to see you. Thanks so much again for making the time.
Thank you.
All right, Michelle. Take care.
Okay, bye.
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation with the legendary Michelle Wie West. And I learned some things about golf too, which was a bonus. I want to thank Michelle for taking the time to chat with me today and her husband Johnny for helping to make it happen and for some insight into Michelle's world of being a mom and an elite athlete. We will be following Michelle as she returns to the links with little McKenna not far behind. Thanks as always to my producer and head researcher, Veronica Ahn. Remember, you can find us on the iHeart app and online, as well as Apple and Spotify and your favorite podcast platform. Keep following us on Instagram at Legends of Sport, our Twitter at Legends_of Sport, our website, legendsofsport.net, and our YouTube and TikTok channels, Legends of Sport. My photography can be found on Instagram and Twitter at ADB Photo Inc. Thanks, everybody, for tuning into this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And we'll see you next week with a new episode of the Legends of Sport podcast. Until then, stay well and stay safe.